Hello, 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 TM24 here, and we are back with some more Marvel Snap content. Now, if you are just finding the channel, welcome! I hope you find this video entertaining and informative as we are talking about one of the newer cards today. And if you are a returning viewer, I do really appreciate your continued support. So does my llama, but let's start talking about the High Evolutionary. So, he was probably one of the most hyped up cards to be coming out kind of in recent memory, really. I know the game's not that old, but the hype around him was just absolutely insane. So we always knew that he was going to kind of pop off here and that pretty much everyone was going to get him. Pretty much everyone was going to play him. And I ended up getting him a couple days late, maybe even more than a couple. But I finally got my hands on him, so I was able to test him out. I've played him in two different decks for this video. One is kind of a really standard, I think really strong deck, which is the one that you're looking at right now. It's the High Evolutionary kind of lockdown deck. And the other is my own homebrew, and I'll talk about both the decks. But let's talk about High Evolutionary, right? So he's giving all those no ability cards abilities. A lot of them centered around inflicting negative damage on your opponent, maybe getting discounts from those negative damage, or powering up for, energy not being spent at the end of a turn. So I think he really does bring a whole new, I don't know if level, but a whole different type of gameplay that we haven't really seen before. And now that I've got my hands on him, I understand a little bit better, why there was so much hype. He's a really cool card. He definitely makes, he gives you something else to think about. He allows you to play the game a different way, and I think that is huge. That's something that I really do value. I love being able to try new things, try new decks, use, maybe common cards in uncommon ways. And the no ability cards are the most common cards out there, right? So we'll talk about those real quick. As you can see here, we got Wasp down. Wasp is going to be afflicting 2 random enemies with -1 power. The other ones, of course, are going to be Misty Knight, which she, at the end of a turn, if you have unspent energy, you're getting +1 power to another card. Shocker, on reveal, he's giving the leftmost card in your hand -1 cost. Cyclops, 3/4 if you end the turn with, energy still there. He afflicts 2 random enemies with -1 power. The Thing is going to afflict a random enemy card with -1 power, repeating twice. Abomination is getting discounts depending on the amount of cards your opponent has that are afflicted with negative power. He can go to 0. And then, of course, there's Hulk, right? And he's getting +2 power for each turn that you finished with energy that you didn't use. So he can get absolutely crazy. He can get above 20 power for 6 cost and just feel really good. This deck here that you're seeing right now is probably the best one I've been able to find in terms of High Evolutionary decks, at least as of right now. I'm sure because he's still relatively new, more decks are going to come out, and that's what I was trying to do in my homebrew deck, which you'll see here in a moment. But I really like this deck as it seems super flexible. It seems super strong. There's tons and tons of synergy throughout this deck. We've got the High Evolutionary cards in there in the form of Wasp, Cyclops, the Thing, Abomination, and Hulk. So really nice core package. Those are probably the best, the best ones in relation to High Evolutionary, in my opinion. And then we have just some other kind of control cards here. We've got Sunspot and Nebula, great 1-drops, the 2 best 1-drops in the game. We've got Storm to kind of, try and shut down a lane early. If you can get a Cyclops on that lane or a Sunspot or Nebula, chances are you're going to win it. We've got a 4-drop in the form of Spider-Man, locking them out. Professor X to lock down a lane. And then we've got Dr. Doom, who's just a really good 6-drop. He helps you reach that Storm lane if, maybe if you're not winning it, and get you into locations that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to. So this deck, I feel, is probably the strongest High Evolutionary deck as of right now. It just seems really good, and it seems like it's really well put together. You could probably tinker with it a little bit. Maybe you take out one of the 1-drops. I know we don't have a 2-drop in this deck, but you don't mind skipping turns because you're powering up your Hulk. If Sunspot's down, you're powering up Sunspot. So ultimately, I think this one is probably the best that I've seen as of right now. You can see getting cards like, Hulk coming down right there. He's 16 power. That is kind of nuts for a 6-drop. We get lucky with Grand Central pulling him, but still, really, really good, really, really good card. The unlocking of his ability through the High Evolutionary seems nuts. So, actually, look, it's 18 now, and we are still going into turn 6 playing a Dr. Doom and an Abomination. So, this deck is crazy. You're definitely going to get more than your fair share of wins with it. This is currently my favorite deck to play right now because it does allow you to take your time and think about the plays that you're making. Do you try and squeeze in that Sunspot, or do you let it go? Do you try and squeeze in that Nebula, or do you play the Storm knowing you have Cyclops as a backup? Do you skip that Storm lane, play Spider-Man, then lock down with Professor X? There's just a ton of different ways to play. Now, this next deck here, which just popped up, is kind of my own homebrew. I was testing, Abomination, She-Hulk. I feel like there's some really cool synergy there in terms of they both are getting discounts, right? So we've got Luke Cage, we've got Hazmat. The goal is to get as many of their cards afflicted with negative power as possible. We would love to copy our Abomination and She-Hulk with Moon Girl and then play a bunch of them for free on turn 7, turn 6. We've got Magic in there to extend the game if that's the route we want to go. So this deck I put together, and I'm having kind of a so-so time right now with it. I've definitely got my fair share of wins. You're going to see 2 of them here just because I didn't want to make the video too long. But it's a really fun deck, a new kind of take on this high evolution, high evolutionary style of deck. And I'm just, I'm trying to experiment with him and see where he is best going to fit in. And this is one that I think has some promise. It might need some tweaking, but I think it's definitely got a case here. You can see we've got Luke Cage, we've got Hazmat coming out, afflicting their cards with negative power. Great for us. We're starting to get those discounts. In this instance, we haven't hit Moon Girl, but that's still okay because we can still go crazy on turn 6 with the free She-Hulk, a really cheap Abomination, playing the Thing for 4/6 plus plus whatever he is hitting with that negative power is actually really, really, really strong. So this deck does have a lot of power with it. It can definitely you can definitely flip games on their head. You'll see here, this is turn 6, and we're chilling. We know that we can go Thing, Abomination, She-Hulk next turn, and that might just be enough. So we feel comfortable enough to just kind of skip that turn and see what happens here. Luke Cage is great in this deck because Hazmat allows you to hit a ton of things with that negative power. We've also got the Wasp that can do that, Cyclops that can do that, and the Thing that can do that as well. So we've got tons of ways to, afflict our opponents with negative power. And, hopefully tons of ways to get these wins. But you'll see here, they came in with a Killmonger. I'm not sure why the arrow hit Luke Cage. It wasn't going to destroy him anyway, but just an interesting little thing that we saw there. But as you can see now, we can just kind of go in. We can drop our Thing. We can drop Wasp, Abomination, and She-Hulk. Luke Cage is probably free there for us, so we can feel pretty good about just stacking one lane and kind of going all in. They end up playing Null, Sabretooth, and Demon, but, thanks to Kamertage, thanks to some of these on reveals, and being able to drop, a couple of free 9-power cards, or pretty much free, is just huge. And you'll see here that we end up taking this one, fairly easily, with She-Hulk coming through at the end of the game there, giving us a nice victory. And I think I've got one more here for y'all, and I'll walk you through that one, and then we'll just get some final words on, kind of High Evolutionary, what we think of him, and how he's going to, continue to affect this metagame and just, play a part in it. In this instance, we are able to grab Moon Girl, which is huge. We included Quinjet in this deck for the Moon Girl play so that everything we copy becomes a little bit cheaper. Limbo is actually great for us because We can go to turn 7, and we don't have to play Magic to do that. By going to turn 7, we can get free She-Hulks as long as we pick them up. The only problem here is that we are copying our Magic, knowing we have no intention to play her because of where she was drawn in our hand. Ultimately, not a bad thing, though. We're still fine. We've got Hazmat. We're considering dropping Hazmat now early to try and hit as many cards as we can. They do end up playing Iron Fist Multiple Man, which is, fine, but because of the Space Throne, they don't have a ton of space to work with. So that's actually kind of good for us, and we feel pretty good just going in here, just dropping the Hazmat. It's only hitting our Quinjet. It's going to hit a lot more of their stuff, so the trade-off is going to be well worth it. And, we're just waiting for them to make their play. They move out of the Space Throne. They actually ended up leaving that for a second, so I wasn't quite sure why, but hey, fine with us. We'll let that go. Now it's turn 5 here, and we can only get 2 cards because our hand is still a little bit heavy here, which maybe we need to go to some cheaper cards. Maybe we include that Misty Knight or that Shocker to try and get some discounts. But we do get a copy of our Abomination, which is what we are looking to do. We do have Cyclops in the Thing that we can play as well, which, as you can see, that's what we're considering right now. But I think ultimately we just play the Thing and we end our turn, and we're floating too, knowing that if we grab She-Hulk, we could still play her for 4 and a Cyclops if we if we want to. We've got 2 Abominations ready to go. This deck can put out, these 9 drops for essentially free. So, Thing comes down. Thanks to Kamartaj, he's absolutely crushing what our opponent's got going on here. We're up an easy 13 there. We don't get She-Hulk, but we've got 2 Abominations to play. We've got a Cyclops to play, and we actually end up holding off. We don't want to play the High Evolutionary. We play just Zabu so that we do get the proc on, the negative power on the Cyclops. So it's little things like that I really, really like about High Evolutionary, is he allows you to make those kind of micro decisions that, can affect the game. In this instance, it wouldn't have really mattered. We were going to win regardless, but it gives you something else to think about, and I like that. It makes you think about your game and your moves before you make them. So yeah, just a couple words about High Evolutionary. I'll actually scroll through these as I'm talking, but I think he's a really, really cool card. He brings some of these, lesser known, lesser used cards into the game, and he seems like he's going to be really strong in terms of, the extra value that he's adding. Now, he himself as a 4/4 isn't really a whole lot. Just pretty standard. In fact, I'm not sure if I've even just played him as a single 4/4, but I think he's a card that if you can get your hands on, well worth it. You'll have a ton of fun. You can play the game a completely new way. So overall, I think High Evolutionary is going to be a really, really cool, fun card to have around. I'm excited to see where he goes, but we will see. I'm going to keep testing with them, keep trying to find fun, crazy decks. Like I said, I think this is the best deck right now for him. So if you've got him, I feel like this one's going to give you probably the best shot at winning those games and, helping you climb those ranks. But if you've hung around till now, I do really appreciate you watching the video. If you haven't subscribed and hit that like button, just go ahead and do it. Take you 1 second, well worth it. More Marvel Snap content is going to be on its way. But until next time, have some fun.